Hello, my name is Rhianna. Welcome to this video. Today I want to talk about some cozy books that I've read recently. So because I'm talking about cozy books today, I really wanted to try and create a cozy environment to film the video. So I was planning on putting like a fireplace, like and my Wi-Fi wasn't working, so I couldn't get it up. And I spent like 20 minutes trying to get my Wi-Fi to work and it's still not working. And during that time, I have finished the cup of tea that I made. And so my two cozy things that I wanted to use in the video, never mind. But I really love watching cozy videos on YouTube where the creators manage to create like a really wholesome feeling. And I'm not sure I've really created that here. We have a washing machine. But just imagine there is a fireplace. There is gentle music in the background. I guess I can. Here's some gentle music. And yes, cozy books. So I wanted to start 2025 reading some cozy fiction because I felt like I'd read a lot of like dark fiction and that included books like Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bastarrica, which is about a future society where humans eat other humans and it's viewed as a normal thing. And I think that book was very thought-provoking, but it was quite disturbing, and it has since inspired me to read fiction that has a primary goal of just making you feel like warm inside. So that's what I've done at the beginning of this year. I've read 3 cozy books recently. I got these ideas from watching other BookShop videos where people talked about cozy books. And so the books are Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, Days at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagasawa, I hope I'm saying that right, and also The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. So I'm going to talk about each one in the order I read them and tell you what I thought. Let's get started. So the book that I started off this year with is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. So this book is about a bounty hunter who is also an orc, and her name is Viv, and she wants to leave the world of bounty hunting behind her, and so as a consequence she moves to this quite idyllic medieval fantasy-like town and decides to set up a coffee shop. And through doing this she curates sweet friendships with the people who help her run the coffee shop, and she also brings coffee to the mainstream within this fantasy world because no one in this fantasy town knew what coffee was, and now they are learning. They also learn what like cinnamon buns are and become obsessed with them, understandably so. And what I really liked about this novel is how it is fantasy but it has low stakes, and what I was worried about prior to going into the novel is because of the low stakes I thought there wouldn't be really anything driving me forward to read, because if you read something without conflict, it can be a bit like... I mean, it would be nice to enjoy things without conflict, but we're human beings and we like conflict. So I thought maybe I would find it a bit boring because of that. But actually there are still stakes in the novel. They're just like low stakes. They're not really like life or death. They're more like, is the coffee shop gonna survive or isn't it? And I quite liked that was the main stake that the novel played with. I think also what I really enjoyed about this novel is the different characters. I really liked the slow burn romance and how it started off as a friendship and then both characters kind of awkwardly like each other but don't really know how to communicate this, and yeah, that was really sweet. And I think one of my favourite atmospheres is a medieval fantasy town, and I've often thought it would be quite nice to watch a sitcom that is set in like the Shire, Lord of the Rings, because I think it's really like a feel-good, cozy vibe. And this book is somewhat close to that idea. It feels like a warm hug when you're reading this, and it feels like bad things aren't in the near vicinity. I think it was really nice to experience that because I often thought that I needed my fantasy to be big and dramatic and have like fight scenes and really high stakes, and I do love that. Like that is really cool. But it was really nice to have a bit of a slower pace and just spend time in this medieval fantasy town for a bit and drink some coffee. So I also read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagasawa. And this book is about a woman, and she has recently broken up with her boyfriend because he has decided to get engaged to someone else. And as a consequence, she goes to live with her uncle, who runs a bookshop. And she believes herself to be quite different from her uncle, and actually they realise that they have more in common than they originally thought. So I was interested in this book because I really love books about the power of stories and how they can influence your life and make you a better person. And this novel does definitely have themes of that, but unfortunately this novel didn't really excite me that much. So this novel felt quite familiar. It didn't feel like it was treading any new ground, and I think that that is fine for a story to do, but I think as a reader it just didn't really keep my interest that much. And I did end up finishing the novel, but that I think is mainly because it was only like 4.5 hours of an audiobook, and if it had been longer I probably maybe wouldn't have been so drawn to finish it. And I don't think it's just that the story is quite a familiar story that is its drawback, because I think stories can be quite cliche but still very enjoyable. Definitely, that's why those cliches exist. But I think maybe the reason that I wasn't so connected to the story is because the writer does tell quite a lot rather than showing, and it didn't really feel that interesting to me as a consequence. And I think as a writer you of course do need to tell sometimes. If you tried to show all the time it would probably be quite difficult, because some things are better just told to the audience. But I think if you tell all the time it makes the writing just a little uninteresting, and also you run the risk of being a bit too overly sentimental, which unfortunately is what I felt like this book was. Now, I think any story which is about the beauty of books has the possibility that it's going to be a bit sentimental, and I don't think sentimentality is a negative thing in books all the time, but I do think that it can be. And I think also as a reader I really appreciate subtlety in literature. I don't like it if things are explicitly told to me, because it's more interesting if things are under the surface, because that is often what it's like in life as well. I recently made a video about Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, and in that book she does subtlety really well. She shows things all the time. Even the grief is never really explicitly shown. It's always under the surface, which is quite true to life as well. A lot of people walk around with grief, but they're not like wearing it on the outside. And yeah, I don't like to be negative about books on my channel very often, because I prefer talking about books that I love, and also I'm aware that it takes a lot of effort to write a book, and usually I can find goodness in any book that I read, and that is true for this one too. I did love the themes about the beauty of books, and it is a quick and fun read as well, but it just didn't really do much for me. So the next book I want to talk about is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, which I loved. This book is about 4 friends who live in a retirement home, and every Thursday they solve murders together, and things are escalated when a murder occurs very close to the retirement home, and the 4 friends take it upon themselves to try and solve this murder. Now, I was skeptical about whether I would enjoy this book, because I don't think I've ever actually read a cozy crime novel. I've always been intrigued by them, but I was unsure that they could really work, because crime isn't cozy. You know, murder isn't cozy. Murder is horrific. How can you take something like murder and make it cozy? So I was unsure. And now I understand why a cozy mystery works. And I think it's in part because the people who die in this novel aren't really good people. And so of course you feel sad that they have died, because they're not like the worst people in the world, but they are pretty bad. So I think the novel would have been different, you know, if the people who had died were better people. And I think I'm going to make a separate video about why I think this book works so well. But a few reasons why I think this book works really well are one, the point of view changes. So we get the point of view of Joyce, who is arguably the main character, I would say, through the form of a diary. And that's really nice to have her diary entries, because you really connect her as a character because you're reading her diary. But we also see from the perspective of other characters who are written from a third person perspective. And I think because the perspectives change and the chapters are quite short, the novel is very readable and it never becomes boring, because things are always changing and you don't really know whose perspective you're going to get next. And in connection with that, the plot keeps you on your toes. I couldn't guess what was going to happen. I didn't guess the ending and who the murder or murderers were. And that, of course, is a fantastic thing if you're wanting to turn the pages to find out who is the culprit behind these crimes. And I think the friendship between the four main characters, I suppose, Joyce, Elizabeth, Ron and Ibrahim, it's a really beautiful relationship that they have. And because they're all older and at a later stage in their life, the novel looks a lot at the theme of loss and approaching the end of your life. And I think that is done really well in the book. It's not done in an overly sentimental way. It's done in a very truthful and real way, because a lot of the characters have lost people that they love. Joyce had lost her husband a few years ago, and also she talks about how she used to go up to London, or down to London, up to London probably because it's in Kent, how she used to go up to London with her friends and see a show, and on the way back they would drink a gin and tonic. And then she talks about how those friends have gone now and those days are gone. And that is an example of showing, not to go on a lot about showing and not telling, but instead of Joyce telling us, you know, she really misses her friends and such, she's showing us like why she misses her friends and moments in the past that she really mourns. And yeah, what a great book. Also, I want to mention this book is really funny. There are a few funny moments that I wrote down. There's one where they're looking at a murder and it says that someone was 46 kilos, and because in the UK we have stones and ounces, Joyce thinks in her head, I think, 46 kilos must be about 23 stone. And I thought that was funny. And I think anyone can enjoy this book. I think there's a reason it's become as popular as it is, and it would be a good time to read it now because the movie is coming out in 2025 and it has a great cast, directed by Christopher Columbus, and I think it's going to become an even bigger hit when that movie comes out. So thank you very much for listening to my ramblings about these cozy books that I've read recently, and I really appreciate you watching this video. I love making these videos. Sorry about the lack of a cozy atmosphere. And yeah, see you in another video soon. Bye bye.